What is up? What is up, sports fans? My name is Jake Anzewski. You can call me Jake Iggy, or Iggy for short, and this is Iggy's Sports Talk. So this is another week jam-packed, filled with sports. Excuse me. I really appreciate everybody who has joined in right now for Iggy's Sports Talk on 91.7 WPCR in Plymouth, and I have a very exciting jam-packed radio show set up for you guys today. I have a very special guest named Elliot Johnson, who is a former MLB player who will be joining me in a few minutes or so. And then I am also going to be talking about the NFL Week 6 and sort of just breaking down what happened during the week, and then also covering a little bit of what is going to be happening tonight, starting tonight, for the MLB World Series. So right now, I am going to be joined by Elliot Johnson. I'm going to bring him into the live right now. I hope you guys are excited. So Elliot played from 2002 to 2015 for the Rays, the Royals, and the Braves, and also the Indians. We're just waiting for Elliot to join right now, just through IG Live. It's connecting. There we go. How's it going, Elliot?
Iggy, thanks for having me, bud.
Absolutely. I really appreciate you coming on the show today. So Elliot played from 2002 to 2015 for the Royals, the Rays, the Braves, and the Indians. And he was signed as a non-drafted free agent out of high school. So it was kind of interesting because when I was doing my research for obviously this interview, I was sifting through everywhere. I'm like, I can't find where he was drafted. I'm like, this is so weird. I'm like, I can't find it. So it must have been sort of nerve-wracking for you coming up through the Rays system as a non-drafted free agent, with you being surrounded with all these up-and-coming draft picks and like that sort of stuff.
Well, not particularly, Iggy. I mean, what you find real quick, you know, for most of your listeners, and I'm not sure how old you are, Iggy, but 2002 was a different time where I didn't have a cell phone. Internet was still up on the dial-up connection, so you play three sports growing up and you don't really know how good you are, but once you get thrown into the mix and you get to see how you compare with the other guys taken, and there's really not a whole lot of difference. In fact, you're probably better than a lot of those guys. The reality is I grew up in a really small town in the middle of nowhere in Arizona and played three sports, so nobody knew who I was. And if you look at the draft, I played in the big leagues longer than, even the first pick in the draft over, number one my year. So the draft can be a crapshoot, and I never let that define who I was as a player, and made the most of every opportunity that I was given, and obviously got to spend a lot of time playing for some of the best teams in the big leagues.
Right, and that's awesome that you have that mindset going into it like that. Because I mean, I'm 21 years old, so I saw Bryce Harper come up and like all that sort of stuff. And for me, like growing up, like he was my inspiration. So if I was on if I got drafted by the Nationals and Bryce Harper was on my same team, at least for me, I would have anxiety about just about like playing next to that guy. But that's awesome that you like had that sort of self motivation and that sort of stuff to be able to really play to the highest level, even though you had all these people around you. And so I was curious, what was like the decision making for you to pursue baseball out of high school?
Oh, it's pretty simple. Again, not knowing the business, not understanding the process, not understanding any of that. I mean, you're kind of on an island, really. And I hit a single and stole a base, and my scout told me, I know you're a Red Sox homer, so you'll appreciate this. He's like, today, Elliot, you've got a better arm and you can run faster than Derek Jeter. And I thought he was full of it until I got to the big leagues and I got to see for myself that he was right, because, Jeter's up on such a pedestal, but I was much more of a Nomar guy, and I tried to pattern my game again, more so towards Nomar than Jeter, because, I hated Jeter. And, I was raised as a Cubs fan, so we were groomed to hate the Yankees because they won so much.
That makes sense. And it also makes sense as well that you were a Nomar fan because he eventually went over to the Cubs, so you must have enjoyed that.
Of course, yeah. Nomar was special. So the jump throw that Jeter does, Nomar would throw it off his right foot. So when I had the similar play, I would always do it off my right foot because I refused to do the jump play because Jeter almost, trademarked it, if you will. So I refused to do that. So I was much more of a Nomar guy from that respect.
That makes sense. Yeah, I always grew up with that, and then obviously Tulowitzki had to try out his own thing and that sort of stuff. But
Sure.
funny enough, even though I'm a Red Sox fan, I still have a Derek Jeter respect shirt, and I go to Yankee Stadium sometimes. I always wear my Red Sox hat, obviously, because you can't succumb to the Yankees fans. But when they do give me crap, I'm like, listen, I got a respect shirt on. Come on, like I'm kind of respecting you guys a little bit.
Really? Man, I don't know, man. I don't know if the Red Sox faithful will be appreciative if you go on both ways there, bud.
Oh,
I
believe
think
me,
you got to just go all in one way, man.
I
Own
know
it.
what you mean. It's been tough for me growing up. I mean, I grew up in New England, so like I'm in New Hampshire. So I mean, New Hampshire's kind of like Connecticut, where like there's some Yankees fans, some Red Sox fans. So like growing up, like I remember when my friends would be like, "Oh yeah, I'm a Yankees fan." I'm like, "Yeah, we're not talking too much anymore."
Well, Sam Fold, New Hampshire guy, but he loved the Red Sox. Come on, man.
Yeah, exactly.
All right.
So you made the opening day roster in 2008 with the Tampa Bay Rays, and that was a big year for the Tampa Bay Rays. But specifically with you making the opening day roster, like what was that like, especially coming up through the system and being able to like know that you're making your major league debut?
Well, it's a dream come true, first and foremost. I mean, being able to, realize a dream, all the hard work has paid off, I mean, because, there's so many people that obviously try, you think of how many people get introduced through international signings and the draft every single year that don't make it, how many people play in high school, college, et cetera, pro ball don't make it. So just being able to call yourself a big leaguer, get a baseball card with some stats on it. A lot of people can't say that. So obviously a dream come true. And, I have four brothers and all of us were supposed to help the Cubs get to the big league. So it was obviously a big family moment as well for my dad, vision, living out his dream and his vision for me and for all of us. We spent a lot of time playing baseball, as you can imagine. So it was rewarding in so many ways to be able to call him and tell him, hey, one of your sons is now a big leaguer.
That's awesome. Yeah, I bet also during your career you got to play the Cubs like a good amount of times. So like being able to have like that sort of childhood dream sort of come true, where you're able to play against a team that you like looked up to throughout your entire life. Like how was that feeling? Pretty cool.
Oh, so like most of the time I spent was in the American League, so we would go and play against the White Sox there, and so Dad would be able to come over. But when I was with the Braves, we had a series. We actually clinched in 2013 in Chicago, so we got to trash that clubhouse. And obviously my dad was there for that entire series. So, and I get him on field for BP, and he was obviously as proud as they come. Being able to watch his son in Wrigley Field was a pretty big deal.
Yeah, I mean that's incredible. At least for me, like if I got the opportunity to hit at Fenway Park or even Wrigley Field as well, like dream come true. It would be unreal. Sure. But so in 2008, your first hit came off of Andy Pettitte. When I saw that, I'm like, wow, that must have been incredible. So like, how was he first like facing as a hitter, and then also once you got that hit, sort of what was your reaction when you got to first base?
So the first at bat, so I debuted hitting ninth as a designated hitter. And I had a great spring. I think I hit 450 or something like that. So I had a great spring, and I had a lot of confidence going into the game. But, the old Yankee Stadium was different than the new Yankee Stadium now, Iggy. So I remember if I looked up at the second deck behind the plate, I would get nervous. So I kept my eyes out on the field, and I didn't get nervous for some reason. But Pettitte, he's tough, man. He's throwing a cutter curveball for the most part. But he was really, really tough. So my first AB got me 3-1, and I just missed it. I hit about 400 feet to straightaway center field. Johnny caught it right on the track. And then my next AB, he went first pitch cutter in. I hit a line drive to left field. So, and I'll tell you and your listeners this. So these are the shenanigans that go on in the clubhouse. So obviously this is my crowning achievement to this point is my first hit in the big leagues. Like this is such a big deal. I took the ball and I put it in my safe, okay, in my hotel. All right. And, so the next day, I get it out and I read it. I'm looking at it. They misspelled my name. They misspelled the date. They did all this stuff with it. And I'm talking to a teammate, Sonnenstein, maybe like a week later at home. And I was like, man, they misspelled my name on the ball. And he like snaps his head and he's like, did you ask for the real ball? And I'm like, come on, man. And like nobody said anything to me for like a week. Nobody, no mention any of it. And so I finally went up to the clubby, to Westy, and I was like, hey, man, can I get my ball? And he started laughing. He's like, took you long enough. So I got the real ball now, and I got it up here in my office now with the I got it in a frame with the the scorecard and everything. Damon, Jeter, Abreu, Rodriguez, Giambi, Cano, Posada, Matsui. I mean, and Pettit. Some of the best Yankees that you ever face. And none of the Rays that are on there today are there playing tonight in the World Series.
Yeah, I mean, it's really interesting to hear sort of like what it was like not only to face Andy Pettit, but also like what it was like to be able to say that you hit a 400-foot ball against Andy Pettit. Like not a lot of people are able to say like that. Like that must be something that, like you said, is one of the best parts of your career, at least from what you can remember, of just like some insane people that you were able to face.
Well, sure, but I mean, think about it this way too, Iggy. I was out, so like 400 foot, good isn't good when better is expected. I mean, I'm still out. You still got to hit it where nobody's standing or can't get to it. So, I made up for it the next AB, of course, but hitting's tough, man. And Pettit was one of the best at getting outs for a long time.
Definitely, and I wouldn't be surprised if he's a Hall of Famer in the next few years or so.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised either. He deserves it.
100%. So in 2009, it was interesting how you missed 2 months with a fractured thumb, and then you came back the next season to hit .319, be the Durham Bulls MVP, and also be an All-Star as well. So I was curious, during those 2 months, you must have had massive motivation going into that next year to be able to perform that well, and you must have really just put all your effort to really do as well as you could after an injury-filled season.
Well, it's not really necessarily a function of motivation. I think everybody's always motivated. It's a matter of execution more than anything else, Iggy. So, it's not like I had bad years other than 2007 here in Durham. It's just the problem is that we had guys that were better than me. I mean, Ben Zobrist was a great player for a long time, so I was kind of hung out to dry here behind him. And then having that year in 2010, Andrew Friedman's now, he's the brainchild for the Rays and now the brainchild for the Dodgers. I called him personally. I didn't even have my agent call him. I called him personally to ask him, why I wasn't getting called up. Because, you hit that well, you're deserving of a pay raise, quite frankly. And so I felt like I earned it. I don't like using the word deserve, but I felt like I'd earned a call up and I didn't get one. So, it's unfortunate. That's kind of the way that the baseball works sometimes. You can do everything possible, but as long as you take care of, your own part, it's supposed to work out. But I don't know anyone who's put up those kind of numbers that hasn't gotten rewarded in some way, shape, or form with a call-up. So, it is what it is. I was certainly disappointed at the time that I didn't get to help the team in the playoffs that year, but I was right back at it in 2011.
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, especially seeing those numbers. I would have thought something very similar. But it's awesome how you were able to come back from an injury and really make the most of your opportunity like you were able to. But one other thing that I was curious about, I mean, you brought up Brent Zobrist. So through your time, just not only through your minor league career, but also through your major league career, who are some of the people that you were able to come up with and then really see them blossom when they got to the major leagues?
Well, so I guess going way back, B.J. Upton was the second pick in the draft in 2002, my year, and he was really, really good. Obviously not a good shortstop, but a tremendous baseball player, center fielder, and he could really hit. So he comes to mind. Delman Young was one of the best off-speed hitters. Longoria is one of the best off-speed hitters I ever saw. I feel like Delman, anytime there was a guy on second or third, if you were in running scoring position, he was going to drive you in. That guy was really, really good. I know he didn't do as well in the big leagues, but he was a tremendous baseball player. David Price, I mean, good grief. Pricey will try and beat you. So Pricey is one of the most competitive guys you'll ever meet, and I know he helped win a World Series there in Boston. Thank goodness for him. I'm happy for him. To get the members of the media off his back, but Pricey's the type of guy that's so competitive he won't want to lose to you in cards. They'll text him and Shields will text you back and forth what cards they have in a team game like Pluck or something like that to try and beat you. So they do everything they can. I'm not talking about games where you're playing with money because that's different. But if you're just playing a game, he's doing everything he can to beat you. James Shields, one of my favorite teammates, of course. Stephen Vogt, great teammate. Sam Fold, great teammate. So I mean, I could go on and on and on about guys, but I guess coming up through the ranks, it's probably I spent most of my time playing a lot with BJ. Zobrist was kind of later because he came over in that trade with Huffy. Really one of the better trades that we've ever seen in any year in terms of value, in terms of value getting received relative to giving up Huffy. So I think those are kind of the core guys. I'm sure I'm missing plenty of people. Fernando Perez, John Jaso. There's plenty of guys. I mean, we had so many big leaguers that came up through our system. It's a credit to player development and scouting, really.
100%. I mean, you brought up the guy's name, Andrew Friedman. I mean, he's a genius in just building these unreal franchises, these unreal farm systems, and it's really crazy to like hear those names because it's making me nostalgic. Just like hearing James Shields, you obviously David Price, he played for us 2 years ago, but like just sort of thinking about like the Red Sox and Rays sort of rivalry at that time. I was curious, like, were you ever able to like be a part of any of those rough and rowdy or just like rivalry games between the Red Sox and the Rays at that time?
It was a lot of fun. So like Shields throwing the haymaker at Coco Crisp, I wasn't there for that. But obviously, I played with Shields a ton. I know how competitive he is, and I know he's not going to back down from anyone. And Coco, I don't know if you know this about Corvelli. He is a competitive boxer in the offseason. I think his dad was a boxer. So like Corvelli knows how to throw his hands. Luckily Johnny Gomes was there to make a tackle, I think, because who knows how it would have played out otherwise, but that's kind of the nature of those types of things. But it was fun to be able to see guys swing on each other. It's not like the Rougned Odor and, the punch that he landed on, I can't think of his name now.
Yeah, forget about it.
Bautista, that's one of the greatest punches landed of all time.
Unreal.
You're bringing up comparisons to Nolan Ryan with Ventura, for goodness sake. But so like those things were so much fun. It's always fun to play in Boston because they're always competitive. The fans are always into it. I guess probably my favorite moment in Fenway, two of them, Sam Fold hitting for the cycle against Daisuke Matsuzaka. And then I took Lester hung me a breaking ball that I hit over the monster. So that's probably one of my favorite moments. Those two are the ones that stand out to me right now.
That's awesome. Yeah, I mean, especially like growing up in that rivalry, you sort of forgot about the Red Sox and the Yankees. And the Rays and the Red Sox always seemed to have some sort of bad blood. It didn't matter if it was in the regular season, in the playoffs. They just had some sort of like strong rivalry. So it must have been cool to be a part of that.
Yeah, and then the third one, Iggy, I'll drop this on you because I don't know if guys are allowed to do this anymore, but we did a rookie hazing there one year. I think it was 11, maybe 12, where Shields paid to have a choreographer come in and have all the rookies work on a dance, specifically in front of the Green Monster one night. We had music playing, and they choreographed a dance perfectly. And I think I remember even Desmond Jennings did a backflip at the end to kind of like to put the icing on the cake. It was phenomenal, professionally done.
You just reminded me of Desmond Jennings. I haven't heard Desmond Jennings in so long.
Special athlete. Yeah,
100%.
He was good, man. He was really good.
He was Carl Crawford after Carl Crawford. Like, unreal.
Yeah, I don't know if you want to pick that scab for you Fenway folks.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
Carl was a great player. He's one of the best Tampa Bay Rays of all time. Nobody can take that away from him. May not have worked out in Boston, but he was a great baseball player.
I completely agree with you. It's interesting how you brought up James Shields a few times and how good of a relationship you both had. Because interestingly enough, you guys got traded together over to the Royals, traded over together in the Royals trade in 2013. So did you guys kind of converse during that night, and really how did you find out about that?
Yeah, so I spent a lot of time with Shields, or Wag OG, whatever you want to call him. So he was probably the first guy I met when I was 18 in Florida in an instructional league. So I spent a lot of time with him. I knew him before he developed that changeup, which is what made him a multimillionaire. But he was always super competitive. He certainly figured things out. Yeah, but when we went from the Rays, because you have to understand the Joe Madden culture is a culture of winning. It really is. And we went over to the Royals, and that culture wasn't as good. And unfortunately, they just basically did, because Bobby Cox did whatever it was with the Braves. That's what Ned was doing over there with the Royals, and it didn't work for today's players. So we brought a completely different brand of mentality into the clubhouse of, just relax, guys. And I could tell you story after story, but I won't. But, so there was a number of different things that we did there where James Shields took over the clubhouse, and I obviously helped play a supporting role, but he was in charge. Anything from, the bus ride from the airport to the hotel, which is insanely important for camaraderie purposes. And then Also, after the game, after you win, we did a ton of different things that were completely out of the realm of expectations that certainly wouldn't have passed for Bobby Cox's time back when he was managing the Braves. So we did things differently, and obviously it helped tremendously because, in 14, the Royals went to the World Series, and in 15, they went to the World Series. So clearly the difference was, the players, sure, you have to start there, but the culture difference was completely different as well.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I mean, when you really saw that Royals team like early on with all those young guys, it was really interesting to see not only how they grew, but it's cool to hear sort of like your story going from the Joe Madden clubhouse over to the Royals, and sort of how you and James Shields were really able to build up that clubhouse and that camaraderie, like you mentioned.
Yeah, well, I mean, it clearly made a difference. I mean, we had a really bad May in 13, but other than that, the team was really, really good. And so just trying to let the guys know, you don't have to do things the way that you're currently doing them. There's a better way to do things. So that's kind of what we tried to do, and get them as comfortable as possible, as quickly as possible. Even regardless if you have 10 years in the show or a day in the show, you can still impact the outcome of a game every single day if you're on the field. So, we completely understood that, and we tried to relay that to everyone, who was on the team in any given day.
Yeah, that makes sense. That's really interesting. So right after you went to the Royals, you went over to the Braves, and it's funny how you brought up B.J. Upton before, because you were able to be reunited with him with his brother Justin Upton. So first question, what was it like being reunited? Because I always think about this, like players like playing with another guy from another team, then being able to be reunited with him. That must have been pretty cool. But also, what was it like playing with the two brothers of Justin Upton and B.J. Upton?
Right. Well, I met Justin when he was 16, a long time ago, and he was always bigger than B.J. So I guess when I got reunited with him, his name wasn't B.J. anymore. It was Melvin, right?
Yeah.
So Mel was, so he was at the beginning of that big $75 million deal, and it was not going well. He was completely different. Mechanically, he was different. He was different mentally. He was different. He'd gotten beat up pretty good. Expectations were different. He was in a different role altogether. I tried to stay out of his hair as much as possible, because he really wasn't interested in talking about anything. I remember Kershaw. I can still remember in the playoffs, Kershaw threw the only changeup he threw to him, or in the entire game. Like, we faced Kershaw twice. BJ, he pinch hit in LA, and the only changeup he threw was to BJ. I mean, he threw him two of them. I mean, it was unbelievable to see how much preparation they had in the event that he pinch hits. So, here's the game plan for him, and they executed flawlessly. But obviously, Kershaw was going to give Freddie and any lefty a hard time, and he's giving me a hard time, and I was a switch hitter. That guy was really, really good back there. I mean, he's not the same guy as he was in 2013, that's for sure. But we'll see how he does. I'm not sure if he gets the ball in Game 2 or Game 3, but we'll see how he does this week.
Yeah, I agree with you. That's interesting what you brought up about BJ, because I mean, when he was with the Rays, it was like him and Longoria, like at least we're like the franchise players. And anytime I would go down to my grandparents' house, we would always go to the Rays games. And I always remember BJ had a little bit of swagger, and he was always seemed like he was having fun during the game. And then once he got to the Braves, it's kind of like you said, a little bit of pressure with his brother, and then he went to the Padres. But it must have been interesting, kind of like you said, to be able to be reunited with him. And like, did you see that sort of happen with some of the people that you were friends with throughout your career? Like, were you able to be on the same teams with them, like on different teams?
Well, probably just Shields, Wade Davis, B.J. Upton. I don't know if there's too many other guys that come to mind right away. Jeff Rancourt. There's a few guys. But really, I mean, you end up being a product of, for the most part, if you're a professional, it's really easy to say and hard to do. You're not really impacted in your day-to-day personality based on results. So you're supposed to just work the process as much as you can, but we're all human beings. We're not commodities. So it's like I said, it's easier said than done. So like I said, he was at the beginning of that 5-year 75, and it wasn't going the way that everyone had drawn it up. And so he was kind of a different guy. But, in 2008, the Rays would have never gotten to the World Series without him. I mean, I think he set a home run. I think he set a record for 8 home runs in the playoffs leading up to the World Series. I mean, so he deserves all the credit in the world for that. But 2013 was a completely different year than 2008.
Yeah, I remember he used to have that front foot. He would like move it a few ways, and then that was like his loading. I remember it was so cool. It was so smooth.
Yeah, but then that year he was tipping the bat to the dugout, and it was just taking him too long to get back around.
Makes sense.
And I know he had analyzed it a million different times, but he just couldn't stop doing it. So yeah, it is what it is.
Yeah, exactly. As a baseball hitter, as you know, sometimes you just can't get those muscle memory or those, yeah, what I mean, out of your head to be able to change those kinds of things. But you also had the opportunity to play on the Indians as well. And I want to ask you, being able to face guys like in practice, like Corey Kluber, Trevor Bauer, Carrasco as well. They had a star-studded rotation, and I had to ask you what it was like facing those guys.
Well, I faced Carrasco coming up plenty. He's tough. He had a really good changeup and a really good fastball. Kluber though I faced Kluber. He was tough. So like his front door two seam is by far his best pitch. His breaking ball is insanely good, and then he's got a changeup he'll sprinkle in just for fun. And he threw me nothing but changeups, man. He was tough. I did not like facing him. He's really, really, really good when he was healthy. I mean, when the Indians went to the World Series, he was a big reason why. I mean, if you remember that you're Red Sox faithful, you remember Josh Beckett throwing that front door two seam at 95. Mm-hmm. In no point in any of our training are we ever told or taught how to hit a front door changeup or a two seam. It just doesn't happen. It starts at your hip, and I'm supposed to stay in on that. You don't do that. That's why what made Mariano so special is, you never work on a ball that moves that fast, that late. Right. All of your training, because, it's only 0.4 of a second before the ball, from the time it leaves his hand until it's in the glove, you've got less time than that to decide. And you're never trained to work on those types of things on a consistent basis to where you can implement that in the game. So it's not surprising to me that those guys found the success that they did, because anyone whose ball can move that much that late is going to be fine. Hopefully they can try and develop more guys like that. But, the more data is showing that guys are swinging under the ball, and, it's easier to develop high spin rate guys and throw fastballs up and breaking balls underneath off of that. So I think that's kind of the way the game is trending. But if you have a guy that can throw that front door two seam at 95, that pitch is almost unhittable.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. All those pitchers are just unreal. And it's unfortunate that they were never able to. Well, they came close. They almost were able to capture that World Series title against the Cubs. But I actually have to ask you, as a Cubs fan, what was it like in 2016 just to be able to have it finally happen?
So, I had relinquished my Cubs fandom a long time ago. So because I played with those guys with the Indians, I was actually rooting for the Indians. My dad would hate me saying that, but it's just, I would. So when the business gets you get traded as many times as I have, you stop being a fan. And I can't really explain it to you other than that, unless it happens to you, don't understand. But I stopped being a Cubs fan. I was more a fan of, I was rooting for the guys that I played with. I was hoping that they would win. And obviously I played for Joe, and I played with Jay Hay, and I played with Zobrist. So I was really happy with those guys to win. But because I had kind of more of an attachment to the Indians, to Tito and the guys over there, I was kind of rooting for the Indians to win. But it's probably better for baseball that they could stop talking about the 100-year curse of the Cubs and we can move on, But anyway, that's why I was torn to a degree, but I just felt a stronger attachment to Kipnis and Michael Brantley and the boys over there in Cleveland.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And now that you're saying all these names, I actually didn't even realize all the people that you were actually around all were in that game. Like there was a good amount of guys, like you said, Zobrist, Madden, also all the guys over on the Indians. And so at least for me, that was the greatest baseball game I've ever seen.
It's up there.
When Rajai Davis hit that home run, I went off. How did you feel since you were kind of in the middle? Where you're like, I don't know who to root for.
Nah, it made it more fun, didn't it? Right. It made it a whole lot more exciting to watch. So because I was rooting for the Indians, I was excited to see it. And then everybody wants to throw shade on Joe Madden because Aroldis is tired. He was still throwing 98. It's like, so a fraction of Aroldis Chapman is still better than virtually every other pitcher on the planet. So I didn't feel like it was necessary. Again, people in the media, they get paid to tell you what you should have done after the fact, not necessarily what you should do during the moment. Right. I get it. But unfortunately, fortunately for the Cubs, it still worked out. Joe got to stick around, and now, obviously, because he's a competitor, he's hoping to win over in Anaheim here real soon.
I hope so. I hope so. They just need some pitching. At least they got the help with Anthony Rendon over there. They just need some pitching. But throughout your time with the Indians, I got to ask, as a Red Sox fan, because you brought up with your experience with Ned Yost. So I was curious, what was your experience like with Terry Francona and sort of his managing style?
Tito's the best. Now, anybody that says otherwise is, doesn't know what they're talking about, or they have some sort of vendetta. Tito's the best. Tito's wonderful. He has a great culture, great environment. He's competitive as can be when the game starts. Before he stays out of the clubhouse, he understands. I mean, Tito knows what he's doing. He should have never been run out of Fenway. Whoever started that coup, I don't know who it was, but obviously that was a deliberate effort to try and win a power struggle. Probably not too much different than Cashman and Girardi over there in New York over Gary Sanchez, and look who's winning that one right now. So, these types of things happen all the time behind the scenes, and most fans aren't aware of them. But typically, the front offices win those arguments just because they spend so much more time with ownership. But to me, Cashman's a brilliant guy. I love Girardi, though. I think he's the right hire in Philly. We'll see how that shakes out. But getting rid of Tito, I just didn't think that made a whole lot of sense at all. And even when the Braves got rid of Freddie, I didn't think that made any sense either. But obviously the new GM president that they brought in over that won that argument. But even that didn't seem to have any merit either. But that's kind of the way that things go in baseball.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. You're making me go back to the Beckett Lackey, the beer and the fried chicken, that whole stuff. Oh my God, that was rough as a Red Sox fan.
Whatever. It's all semantics. If they're winning, nobody talks about it, nobody cares. But since they're not, somebody's going to leak it to the media in an effort to try and get him out. That's really what it was all about. If you can't see through that, then you're just, you're ignorant.
I agree with you. So you brought up how tough it was to obviously be traded as much as you were. So as a player, like, how tough was it to not know if you'd be on the same team the next season or even the following day?
Well, it's the nature of the business. Give you some cliches, control what you can control, all that yada yada stuff. Really, it's a function of if I perform, then my career is a lot more in my hands than otherwise. So it's really, the motto is if you don't like it, play better. So that's really what it's all about. So if you go out there and play well, then you don't have to worry. So anyway, so that's really where I boiled that down to, Iggy. If you control what you can control, then everything's good.
Yeah, that makes sense. And then just lastly, just because you played for the Tampa Bay Rays and then you also played for the AAA affiliate for the Dodgers, who's your pick not only for tonight but for the entire series? Who do you think is going to win the series?
All right, nice. Yeah, well done. So I've answered this question a couple of times. I think the Dodgers are the better team. I think we all know this. I think Kevin Kiermaier is probably the greatest defensive center fielder we've probably ever seen. You throw in Willie Mays there, I have no problem saying that. From a defensive run save standpoint, and I played against him. He's unbelievable. His first step is unbelievable. It's direct. His root efficiency has to be tops in the league every single year. The bullpen is really, really good for the Rays. I'll give them all the credit in the world. I love Cashy, of course, but I think the offense with the Dodgers, I think anybody that has a brain knows that the offense over there in LA is so much better. Mookie is so good. I know that probably hurts you over there in Fenway, over there in Boston.
I was actually happy you got traded.
Come on, man. How do you be happy he's traded? He's one of the best players ever, man. He's got $1 million smile. He's a great player. He's everything you'd want in a teammate. So you can't be happy. Alex Verdugo, so
He's
whatever.
There, but he's close.
It is what it is. So the Bellinger's unbelievable. Seager's unreal. He's unreal good. Kike, you throw him in every once in a while. Muncy hasn't been good yet, but he can be. Will Smith, Austin Barnes. Austin Barnes is one of the best defensive catchers in the game. Will Smith has hit really, really well. So the Dodgers offensively are much better. I'm not necessarily going to give an edge to the starting staff. I think if Pricey were there, it would be a whole lot easier for LA to be in the driver's seat, and they still are. But he would certainly help them a lot more than obviously being at home, but that's his decision to make. So I think the Rays are much scrappier. I'll give them that, but I still think the Dodgers are probably going to end up winning in 6.
Yeah, I agree with you. Just like looking at the stats, the Dodgers led the ALC or the NLCS with 16 home runs. But interestingly enough, the Rays actually are second in home runs with 11. But like you said, the pitching is unreal. So the Dodgers have a 4.35 ERA in the championship league series, and then the Rays had a 3.08. Crazy.
Okay, yeah, but they're facing the Astros that don't know what's coming anymore, so that's changed. And then Arozarena has just been unbelievable. I mean, so Eric Neander deserves an award for going out and trading Matthew Liberatore to go get him. Most GMs don't have the guts to make that play, trading your first round pick. But for him to go get Arozarena and all the records he's setting, he deserves an award for sure. Cashy should be manager of the year for sure. But still, I just think that the talent on the Dodgers, you think of if you did a position by position lineup of who you would rather have, I mean, would you rather have Seager or would you rather have, I'm losing who the guy is for the Adames for the Rays. Who'd you rather have?
I'd have Seager.
Okay. Joey Wendell or Justin Turner?
I mean, Justin Turner did all right this year, but I mean, just for this talent, he's better than Joey Wendell.
Yeah, Joey's been unreal, man. You see how many plays he's making. So like the Rays defense has been unreal. Joey's all over the field. He's done great hitting, But still, I mean, Justin Turner probably has an edge. At first base, you've got G-Man Choi, Yandy Diaz, or you're going to take Muncy. I don't know. Second base, Kike Hernandez. Brandon Lau's been really struggling.
He's a whole different player in the playoffs.
But Brandon Lau's been really. I think he's like 3 for 40. I mean, it hasn't been going well in the playoffs. So I mean, obviously the edge goes to anybody the Dodgers put out right now. I'm not saying over a season, but right now it's just whoever that ends up being. So but in center field, Bellinger or Kiermaier, I probably got to do Bellinger, especially defensive run save this year. Belly really did well. Mookie in right field. Mookie's probably the best right fielder in the game.
Yep.
But Arozarena has been doing really well in left. So, I mean, they got one position. At catcher, Zunino, I know he hit well, but I'm still taking either Will Smith or Barnesy. That's just the way it is. So you go position by position. If the Rays can't keep the Dodgers from scoring, they won't have a chance.
Yeah, I agree. The only thing for me is just the Dodgers bullpen. That's really the only thing for me. And the Rays have just been doing the opener approach for like 2 to 3 years. That's the only advantage that I feel like they have. But I mean, one last stat that I'll say is that they have the lowest average in the championship series, which I had no clue, with a 201 average.
The Dodgers?
They got 11 home runs.
The Dodgers? Yeah.
The Rays.
The Rays hitting 201?
201. Isn't that crazy?
Well, yeah, that is pretty surprising. Well, yeah, I get it, but they still, I mean, Arozarena is counting for 100 of those points. He's been unbelievable. So if he stays hot, and I think he will, they're either going to have to give him the Barry Bonds treatment or hope nobody's on when he comes up, because that guy's been absolutely incredible. He deserves all the credit in the world. So we'll see.
I completely agree with you. Well, I really appreciate all your time today, Elliot, and being able to give me some insight on your experience in the major leagues, and especially with all the star-studded players that you were able to play with. And I would definitely love to have you on sometime in the future. But I really appreciate you coming on.
All right. Thanks, Iggy. Hope your boys appreciate it.
Appreciate it. Have a good one.
See ya.
Yeah. All right, perfect, guys. I hope you did really enjoy that interview with Elliot Johnson and were able to learn a lot about his MLB career. Right now, I am going to take a quick break and come back talking about what happened in Week 6 of the NFL season. I'll be right back.